everyone, and welcome to the second talk of the day. So, I'd like to introduce Kristy Haines, who'll be giving the talk, Everyone's Confused About Design, and That's Okay. So a bit about Kristy. Kristy's had over 18 years of experience in design across a variety of delivery and research roles. She's currently a UX design lead with HBF Health and has worked in both enterprise and agency organisations in Australia and the UK. Kristy's proud to define herself as a design generalist. She's got a broad set of skills, a good dash of common sense, and experience that just helps get stuff done. Kristy's passionate about leveraging design to help enable high-performing, cross-functional teams. She loves nothing better than working with people in different roles to unravel sticky problems and creating innovative digital products and experiences. Okay. Thank you, Kristy.
Cool. Thank you, Teresa. It actually makes... I'm very proud that Teresa was actually able to introduce me today. For those that don't know either of us, we go back a fair while, so she's actually a close friend, so it means a lot for you to introduce me. I want to just thank the organisers, the volunteers, and obviously our sponsors as well. This is my first DDD Perth conference, so I thought, why not come in and do a 45-minute talk to start with? So it'll be fine. Come along for the ride, it'll be great. Right, so let's get started. What is design? So design is, that's a really simple question, but it's actually quite hard to answer. It's something everybody's got experience with in one way or another. And even if you had a room full of designers and you asked them this very question, you'd get a whole wide range of different answers back. So it's no wonder that everybody is confused about design. So a couple of months ago, I was looking around online on the old Facebooks, as you do, and I saw a Facebook post from an online design school that asked this very question. And I thought, great, that's going to be 2 minutes of my 45-minute talk. I can probably talk through some of the answers that they gave on that Facebook post. So let's have a squiz at some of the things that people said in the Facebook post comments. So design is function made beautiful. Design is the intentional creation of amazing, effortless artifacts. All that we see is design. Design is how things work, look, feel, and are used. So what comes to mind when you think of design? So for some people, it may mean things like designing things like products, websites, apps, graphics, or it might be just say the way that something looks or functions. And you'd be right, these are all things that we refer to as design. But there are only a few aspects of design. So about 3 years ago, I was on mat leave and I was getting a bit antsy and I wanted to sort of watch a few design presentations. And there was one by Ofer Yom Tov. He's the Chief Design Officer over at ANZ Bank. And what he talked through was a framework that was developed by the Carnegie School of Mellon School of Design in the 1990s. And it talks about 4 orders of design. So these aren't levels, there's no hierarchy here, but they're just 4 types of problem spaces that design can help with. And I found it really useful in the way that it broke this broad concept of design into something that was just a little bit easier to understand, because design at its core is about problem solving. So these are our 4 orders of design. They're based loosely around product type and ordered around complexity level. Now, this is all well and good, but if you actually went up to a designer today and said, hey, what order do you work in? They'd probably look at you a little bit weird and have no idea what you were talking about. So it's not something that designers talk about in their day-to-day, but it's a great concept to help explain the broad landscape of design. So our first order here is called symbols, and this is all about visual communication. And it's most often the area that people associate with design. So this is all about the visual things people can see. So this has things like illustration, typography, photography, posters, all of that sort of good stuff. And it's everything that's related to the world of graphic design, visual design, and information design. Our second order here is called products, and this is where includes objects that people physically interact with. This is where form and function meet. It's a world of product design and industrial design. And just to confuse things a little bit more, because everybody's already confused about design, so hey-ho, physical product design does not equal digital product design. So this sits in our next order, which is our order of interactions. And this deals with the experience of people and things over time. So it's often tied in with our first order of design, and that's where you see your user interface elements appear. But it delivers on interactions, services, and experiences. So this is our world of service design, user experience design, UX design, and digital product design. And now we're in our fourth order. This is called systems. And this is our most complex order of all. And in this, we're designing for things like businesses, learning experiences, systems, cultures, organisations, and even cities. So this is about how groups of people and things interact with other groups of people and things. And this is our world of strategic design, business design, and organisational design. Now, this is all well and good, and I always love a good framework, but let's have a look at this in action. We're going to talk about Apple, okay? So I've practiced this talk a few times, and I've had some positive and negative reactions whenever I mention Apple to people. So can I get a hands up for who's an Apple fan in the audience? Who digs Apple here? Got a few people. Thought there might be coming to a design talk. Who's not a fan? Who's like, boo hiss, bad Apple? Yeah. And who's ambivalent? Who's like, meh, yep, awesome. Okay, we've got a good mixture in here, so this is going to be good. This isn't sponsored by Apple, by the way, but if anybody is in the audience, I'm always open to some freebies, so that's good. So we're going to go back into our orders here. And we're going to talk about our first order of design, which is symbols or visual communication. So in the 1990s, Apple was actually in a pretty bad state. People actually thought the company was going to go under. There was no iPhone, there was no iPod, there was no iPad, no iMac. And then while Steve Jobs waited on these products to launch, he wanted something that would remind people about the qualities that were core to the Apple brand. And this is where our Think Different campaign comes in. So here you'll see one of the print ads that was created, and there were a whole series of print ads that went with this, as well as a television commercial. And it's really powerful because here you can, because of the emotions and memories that this actually conveys. So there's no product shots here. There's no talk of any product benefits. There's just three things: a historical figure, the Apple logo, and the words Think Different. So this is a branding campaign, pure and simple, and it's one of the most popular Apple campaigns to this day. So now we're looking at our second order here, and this is our order of products or physical objects. So here we're designing a broader set of challenges, which might mean materials, supply chain logistics. Do I need to change my microphone? Yep. Sorry, that's okay. This will take up some of the 45 minutes, which is good. Okay, cool. Right, here we are designing to a broader set of challenges. So you're looking at things like materials, supply chain, logistics, ergonomics, packaging, and more. So the Apple packaging itself is a sensory experience. Your first interaction with this thing is actually how it looks. This packaging is designed to be as visually appealing as the thing that sits inside it. So every line on this box is clean. It's elegant, it's minimalist, it's white packaging. It's simple in a world of clutter. So Apple actually pay as much attention to the small stuff as they do the big stuff. So that box, that gets the same amount of attention as the device inside it. So did you know that there's actually a designer or designers that are employed to create, design, and test hundreds of prototype boxes? So this just isn't about aesthetics here. It's also about a package that's easy for customers to open, it's easy for them to identify the components, parts inside it, and it's easy for them to start using. So it's a process that's focused first and foremost on the customer. It's not focused on, for example, to prevent shoplifting. Now we're getting into our third order here, and this is our order of interactions and services. Now I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about this order because it's probably where most of your designers will actually be working in. So we're going to think about the experience of buying from an Apple store, from a physical store. So you're going to have a trigger. There's going to be something that makes you want to buy that Apple product. And maybe it's an ad that you've seen, maybe it's a friend or a family member that you've been recommended it from. You'll do some research, you'll make your way to the store, maybe you're catching a train, you'll enter the store, you'll talk to somebody about what you're after, you'll purchase your Apple product, you'll leave the store, you'll go home, you'll open up the box. So this whole end-to-end experience and these touch points and interactions and emotions that are what we're designing for in this order. So in this order, our designers look at three main areas. We've got people, process, and technology. So first of all, the people. So it's not just about the customers, but the people that work at Apple. This is about maintaining empathy for everybody that's involved in the process. And so by trying to understand all sides, we can make human-centred, critical decisions in designing the experience. And we also look at process. So these are the standard procedures to operate a business. So for this Apple example, we'll look at things like how do the staff talk and interact with the customers? So what are their selling tactics? How are the staff rostered on? For example, what happens during peak hours? And what are the different roles in the store? Who does what? And by understanding the current process and the business requirements, we can align and arm people in the business with the knowledge and the tools to help improve the experience. And the third one we look at is technology. So what's needed to deliver the experience? So what technology is Apple using to help deliver the service seamlessly? So do they have an efficient point of sale system? Are we tracking deliveries once they leave the store or the warehouse? We look at technology so we can actually understand what are the touch points to deliver the service and what can be done to deliver a better, improved service. Now we're getting into our fourth order. This is our fourth order of design where we're reaching into business design and innovation. So Apple is in fact a service business. It's got everything from the App Store to, and I'm going to take a breath here, Apple News, Apple Books, Apple TV, Apple Movies, Apple Music, Apple Pay, iClouds, iTunes, and much more. Right? So this is where it gets its revenue. So it's not just about selling laptops and phones. It's about selling people constant, ongoing subscriptions for the things that they can do on their devices. It's an ecosystem that's designed to suck you in and never let you leave. So by buying that iPhone, it's almost like that gateway drug into the Apple experience. So Apple innovate through reinvention, and they just make it slick. So they want to take innovation to the next level by making its product features better and to work seamlessly across multiple devices. So this leads us to now how Apple designs their business for innovation. So in 1997, when Jobs returned to Apple, this had a conventional structure. This is the structure that you see on the left here. It was divided into those business units. So he changed it to the structure on the right, where the organisation was restructured to align to areas of expertise. And since Tim Cook has taken over, it has changed slightly again. So they rely on organisational design to have a crucial part in the success for innovation, where they're able to compete with other companies like Google, Samsung, Microsoft, IBM, and many more. But if you're anything like me, you probably still have questions, like when did things start getting so complicated? When did we start needing all of these different types of designers? And when did they start popping up in all of these different organisations? So I blame the year 2013, right? So I want you to think back to 2013 and think about what you were doing. It was almost a decade ago. It was a very non-pandemic type of time. It was a much simpler time back then. But it's got a lot to answer for. Now, I didn't know if I'd be losing people at this point, so you've hit the funny GIF and meme section of my talk, which is cool. So 2013 was when this guy came into office. So he was our 28th Prime Minister. Like I said, 2013 had a lot to answer for. Thanks to Marley Twerking, first entered the Oxford Dictionary, so that's actually in the dictionary now, thanks to her. The worst wedding ever happened on Game of Thrones. My partner's now making me rewatch all the Game of Thrones series at the moment, so I thought that was quite apt. And back in 2013, I read a Wired magazine article, which at the time I didn't think too much of. I sort of thought, that's interesting. I wonder what's going to happen off of that, and just sort of moved on with my day. But little did I know that that was actually a key moment in terms of what design meant or represented to businesses. So this is what it was entitled. It was called "Big Corporations Are Buying Design Firms in Droves." Right? And the first opening line in this was, "The significance of design in business is ballooning." So 2013 is the year that Accenture, a global consulting firm, buys design giant Fjord. So Fjord are a London-based global design and innovation firm. Now, bigger companies have been acquiring smaller companies since forever, but it was about this time that design agencies and firms started to become acquired by large consultant companies. And so it wasn't just large advertising, marketing and creative groups. And so fast forward to today. So design has changed. It's now been recognised by companies and businesses as something that can provide better business and customer outcomes. And so what this means is now we're seeing a change in the type of designers that we're seeing in organisations. So say about 10 years ago, there were much more visual, digital and web designers, and now you're seeing more strategic, experience and service designers. So, what does this mean for you, right? The projects that you work on and the designers that you actually work with. So, it not only comes down to understanding what is design, all of those cool four orders that we've just gone through, but it's about getting a rough idea of what the design process is like and where different designers can crop up in your process. Now, when we talk through the process today, I'll mainly be talking through our third order of design. So this is mainly when we're dealing with UX designers, service designers, product designers, etc. So this is my area, the area that I sit in, and most of the, like I said before, where most of your designers will probably sit in. So this is what it looks like when you've got designers usually explaining design processes. We tend to look a little bit like that. There does feel like there's like a million different design frameworks and methodologies out there that step through this process. But the easiest one and the most common one we tend to refer to is our good old double diamond. And this is great because you can chuck in double diamond into Google and this, is generally what you'll get back. So. It was done in 2004. It was created by the UK Design Council, and it's very well known with designers. So if you ever want to talk to a designer about this, they can run you through it. So it basically describes our two modes of thinking that we do as designers. This is where we're going wide, we're diverging. So you can see, I'll do a speak close wide. And then we'll converge and we'll go narrow. Yeah, might be a new speaker pose, who knows. So the first diamond is really about if we're figuring out if we're doing the right things, right? So this is why we're going to go wide with our discovery search. We're going to converge and we're going to go narrow. We're going to define our research themes, our insights, and our opportunity areas. And then we're going to go into our second diamond. So this is about building the things right. So we go wide, we diverge, we go wide with our ideas, we're starting to set the design vision, our North Star, and then we're going to converge and we're going to go narrow, and this is where we're prototyping, we're testing, we're learning, we're iterating, we're rinsing and repeating, until, huzzah, we have our solution. But I have a problem with this approach. It's too design-centric. I think it's useful because it gives all the good stuff that you get with converging and diverging, etc. But it suggests that we've actually got a final solution at the end that it sets up the expectation that everything's completed and it's handed off for implementation to our dev teams. That last diamond is way too simplified in the real world of delivery. So this is why I personally prefer the triple diamond, which was produced by Zendesk. And this is what it looks like. So at the start of our third diamond here, we're confident it's the right solution at this point. We've gone through our discovery process and we know it's there, but it needs further refinement. So let's zoom into this last diamond a little bit more. There we go. This third diamond actually marks the start of our agile sprints, where we're building out our products through to our launch, and it's not about doing a handoff. Here we're refining and we're filling in more details as we're progressing through our sprints. And our devs are investigating technical solutions while our designers are creating prototypes and conducting usability tests. And as we progress, we can see the uncertainty is decreasing over time and we're honing into that right solution. And we're still testing throughout, just to see how customers are responding through our product, so this test and respond, and we're tweaking accordingly. And as we progress, uncertainty is decreasing over time and we're starting to hone into that right solution. Now, we should be refining our solution as we're progressing. We're really starting to hone in, but towards the end, that flexibility for change decreases. And at the end, it's that last little bits of optimizations that we're actually accounting for. Now, it's important to remember, and anyone that's been involved in this process, it's never linear. It feels a little bit messy sometimes. Sometimes there's features that you may discover that need to go back into the discovery process, for example. So now we've got a good understanding of the process. Let's talk about some of the different designers you'll get across this process and where do they sit. Right, I'm going to take a bit of water here. Just hold on. Right, so now we're back into our triple diamond, the full triple diamond. And here is an example of what our HBF projects look like and how our designers sit in the process. So we're actually in that last little validation stage at the moment. So our service designers and our UX researchers are performing heuristic reviews and assessments for some squads. And our in-squad product designers, our UX UIs, are working through bug fixes and improvements. So as a team, we're actually honing in on our final solution, but our flexibility for change is definitely decreasing as we're getting closer to our rollout. So let's talk about collaborating with designers in this process. So it's really important to remember that designers don't hold the monopoly over how we design and build products, or even how we innovate. Remember, we need to collaborate with our experts, with you guys and ladies and gents and everyone in this room. So the reason why we need you, we need to make sure that what we're designing is not only desirable, but it's also feasible to create and viable for the business. So if there's no collaboration there, we end up missing two key areas, our feasibility and our viability. So innovation and great products can't happen in isolation. And it's certainly not about throwing things over the fence and designing and developing without collaboration. So collaboration is key to creating innovative products and services. So for those that are interested, this is what we call a DVF framework. It also is referred to our three lenses of innovation, and it was done by originally a company called IDEO. And there's been a lot of talk recently about a fourth lens. This is for sustainability, and this is where we're looking at including social and environmental awarenesses into our designs as well. Right. Let's go through some practical tips, because I'm all about practical tips, that can help improve collaboration with your designers. So first, see your design team as your true partner in crime. So we can help you understand customer needs and can help you influence the product design and direction. And provide constructive feedback. So we love getting good, useful feedback and fresh ideas, but it needs to be delivered in a way which is actually useful. So things like "I love it" is always great, but making sure you tell us why you love it. The same thing goes with "I don't like it." Make sure that you've got that backing there for why you don't like it. So providing a reason will always help your designers, but you need to make sure it's with the lens of your customer. Make sure it's objective feedback, and if you've got the data there to support it, even better. So be upfront about constraints. So your designers should be getting feedback from you throughout the design process, and if they're not, definitely hit them up about that. Speak up about technical and business constraints as well. So when we know about these, it helps us work with you to find an alternative solution. But it's really important to be considerate and to make sure that upfront constraints don't stifle creativity and innovation. So make sure you work with your designers as a team to overcome those constraints. Review design work thoroughly. So this is especially true for our visual designers. So details matter here, right? Your designers may think that they've specced out everything, but more than likely they have actually missed something. So the same thing goes for those that are working with design systems. So make sure you're factoring it in time with your feedback. Quite often we work hand to mouth, especially when we're working in squads, right, where all the deliverables are really urgent. But this actually leads to problems later on. So when suddenly it just becomes a just get it done sort of scenario, we may miss opportunities for things that need to be tested. Now, out of all of these points, if there's any one point that's probably the most important, this is it. This is about getting involved. So, observe your research sessions, make the time to observe them, listen to the customer feedback and even your debriefs from your designers. So discuss with them what are their next steps, highlight any technical or business constraints, but leave it with them to make the design decisions. Right, so I actually know I've got a few designers in the audience today, so I don't think I haven't forgotten about you. And hopefully some are watching online as well. Now, just think, what if you gave the same care and attention to the people that you work with as you do your end users, right? So find out the pain points and needs for the people that you work with. So talk to them, take them out for coffee, maybe beer or wine, always open for that. Maybe some people like something a little bit more formal. I've even seen designers use empathy maps before to better understand their teammates. So understand maybe the pressures that your product owner is under. So what metrics are important to them? What are they trying to achieve? What are the pain points for your developers? Is rework a problem for them? What's going to make their life a lot easier? So by understanding the people that you work with, just as well as you do your users, you can actually establish better workflows that will provide better outcomes and will end up having a better, happier working relationships. So be like Bruce Lee, this is very zen. Be like Bruce Lee, be flexible like water. So your design documentations and workflows will change from project to project, from team to team, and you need to adapt to what works best for your team. So your team shouldn't adapt to you. I mean, sure, sometimes you may have suggestions to actually how a different approach may help everything, but in general, we're a piece of a larger puzzle. So be like water, be adaptable. Your design will never be done. Sounds a little bit depressing, but this is where you need to be strong. This is where resilience is key. So as a designer, our job isn't done once our screens and prototypes are done. You're going to find that the real challenge, and I'm finding this at the moment, is when people start poking around in your designs, discovering holes and use cases that you haven't even thought of. And so as this happens, you need to make sure that you work harder to accommodate these requirements, iterating on your designs. So this is because our role as designers is to create experiences that people actually use. It's not about creating mock-ups or concepts. So we need to be responsible for the things we create. We're an important part of what is produced and used by the people that we champion. Because of this, we're going to continually keep iterating and improving and evolving our designs, and they'll never be done. But at the end of the day, that's a great thing. So it's not just about design either. So how can designers help make sure that we deliver on a great product? So this is where we're going to get our hands dirty, and we're going to help provide feedback on what's being built. So, for example, the designers in our web squad at the moment over at HBF have been doing device testing. And I've had a heap of people come up to me going, but why are you guys doing testing? Like, doesn't that sit with the developers and the testers? But designers actually have an intimate knowledge of the product of the end user and what should be built, right? And they know how those dots connect throughout that whole end-to-end experience. So use that to your advantage. So designers, this means you might have to get intimate with things like, for example, Jira. Make sure the acceptance criteria is correct. Make sure that that link in that ticket is linking through to your Figma file or your Sketch file. Make sure those screenshots are correct. So all of these things work to help your team and also help make sure that you deliver on a great product and experience. So less is more. So as designers, we design for an ideal state, right? Our future state. So in the real world, not all of our features will make it into our MVP, our minimal viable product that's built at the end. So as the project progresses, you're going to find that your product owner is going to prioritise features. And as this happens, designers are going to see their work shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink until everything's sort of thrown over at the end of the day, at the end of the boat. So this is where a design mindset change is needed. So this should be seen as an opportunity rather than an attack. So we can really work to refine out these MVP features and really make sure that we're working closely with our teams to build this out. Now, just like the last lot of points that I went through, if there's any one that you want to take away with you, this is probably it. It's about bringing our teams along for the ride. And see, there's a roller coaster there. So sometimes our teams aren't involved in our discovery process. Sometimes they don't get to see things like usability tests or hear from our end users, right? So as designers, we represent the voice of the customer. We've got a really important part in making sure that goodness spreads across our teams. So it might be things like playing back verbatim feedback that we've had in our user testing sessions. We may present test results back in some things like we've got showcases, for example, at HBF. We play back our research findings in those. And if you're able to play back videos where people can hear it from the horse's mouth, that's even better. So where you can, make sure you involve your teams. So it's really difficult sometimes because there is a tension between just getting the stuff done, making sure we're achieving our sprint goals, making sure we're getting that burn down looking really good. But in the bigger picture, we're going to have products that provide better experiences for our teams if they know who they're designing them for and who they're building them for as well. So as designers, it's not just about us understanding our end users, it's also the role of the business to understand the end users. And as designers, we need to make sure we're better at spreading and sharing that knowledge and understanding of our customers. So these tactics that I've talked through are really aimed at improving collaboration. Right? So we know that collaboration is really key for high-performing cross-functional teams, but it also improves something that we call design maturity. So what is design maturity? So design maturity is the way to which businesses incorporate, understand, and use design. So the more mature an organisation, the more likely that innovation, better customer experiences, and business benefits will happen. So there's been a bunch of reports and models that have been done on design maturity. There's been one through the Nielsen-Norman Group that's very UX focused. There was one 3 years ago through a company called Envision, and one done about 5 years ago through McKinsey. So we're going to have a quick look at the Envision maturity scale here. So this is the maturity scale that was done by Envision. So here you can see, as we move through different levels of design maturity, so they're those big dots you see on the screen there, the benefits of design and the adoption of design in the business increase. So these circles represent the proportions of businesses for each of these maturity stages in the study. So for example, that little dot that you see at the top right there, that shows that 5% of companies were at the top level of design maturity. So in this study, that's 110 businesses out of 2,200. So let's look at each of these levels. Let's go into our level ones. So these have the lowest level of design maturity, but they actually make up the largest proportion at 41%. So these are the companies where design is just seen as pixels on a screen. So here there's a real disconnect between what designers design and what developers actually produce. And so this is a symptom of a lack of collaboration. When we hit our level 2, so this is our level 2s, we're at 21% here. This is where collaboration with these organisations was improving, where designers and non-designers are starting to work together a lot more. So here you're seeing more things like integrated tooling, user research, user testing. You're probably seeing some personas around the business. And you're generally hearing a lot more chit-chat about design in the business. Now, we're going to look at our level 3s here. They're at 21% as well. But this is where design starts to become scalable, where there's established things like processes, roles, responsibilities, documentation, all of that sort of stuff. So this is where design operates in more complex companies and product ecosystems. So with level 3s, you're seeing more things like design systems, written briefs, and more design ceremonies. When we look at our level 4s, so this is where we're starting to get a little bit smaller here. This is 12% of companies in this survey that Envision did. So this is where you're starting to see a lot more design experimentation, and it's all about data-driven design. So this is where you're probably starting to see the starts of a design strategy practice. This is where you're probably going to see more market research and design vision development happening. And you're probably seeing design operations being formalised to support the design practice as well. And our last little dot at the top there, that's our level 5. So this is Nirvana, right? So this is level 5. That sounded really Australian, Nirvana. Anyway. This is our ultimate level of design maturity, right? This is only where 5% of the companies in the survey were playing. So this is where design is actually used to help business strategy, where we're doing exploratory user research, we're doing trend spotting and futures research, we're experimenting, we're testing for product market fit and producing things like vision artifacts. So the majority of places that I've worked at, I'd say would be between a level 1 and 3. So that's not a bad thing. It just means design as a function in the business is in its early days. And so it's really important to remember you can't just jump from a level 1 to a level 5, if only if it was that easy. It's a real gradual progression that requires a huge amount of effort and a lot of the business buy-in from the business as well. So it can take years to move from one stage to the next, but it happens every day in small steps. I do seem to remember off the top of my head, but don't quote me, I think it takes probably about 30 years possibly to reach a level 5 organisation. So aside from collaboration, what can help? Right, so here are some tips from that report and some examples of what we've been doing over at HBF. So design needs to be supported at a leadership level. So when it's seen as more than just pixels on a screen and it's recognised as a part of the business, a critical part of the business, there's opportunity to use design to innovate. So it's something that we do have at HBF. So we've got support from our general managers in the business and we've got an executive general manager of member experience. So they actually understand and speak to the value of design. And so having this support actually means that HBF has actually adopted design and see it as key for improving the customer and member experiences. So hire experienced design leaders, right? Isn't this typically what you think of a designer, you know, wearing black glasses and a black outfit? The more senior a design leadership, the greater the return on the design investment. So who should you be hiring for, right? So you need design leaders that know their craft, they can inspire their team, and they can make a strong case for design at the highest levels of business. So at HBF, we've got a chapter lead and we've also got a GM of member experience strategy, and they're part of those critical conversations. And this actually gives design a voice in the business where it can actually be used to transform the business. And use design to run regular experiments and use data to inform strategy. So companies can innovate when they use design and data to explore, experiment, inform and de-risk. Right, so an example of where we've used design experiments at HBF was in our future state service design work. So this is where we were able to connect the dots between the design strategy and the business strategy, where we were able to prove that we could get efficiency gains and cost savings. Right, so, for example, we were able to identify that 20% of our online sales for HBF were actually members trying to change their level of cover. And so this informed our design strategy, where we've prototyped and experimented with solutions for this. And then we also identified that we could provide cost savings to HBF, where we've hypothesised that there will be decreases in manual handling costs and the number of calls into our cost centre. And so moving forward, we know that these are also metrics that we want to measure. And spread design throughout the business. So when design works at scale and it's embedded within the organisation, it's going to have more impact and influence. So our design practice over at HBF is still pretty young, and we're looking at still establishing things like processes and design standards and building out things like our design system. And these are going to help us work at scale. And that's exactly what happens when you see design maturity trying to build in an organisation. And so what we do start seeing, we do have signs of design culture throughout HBF. So we're seeing things like we've got a design and experience chapter. We've got business capabilities that are actually aligned to our customer journey. We've got an established research program, and we've got a guiding value proposition and design principles. And these were actually created through things like research, concept testing, experts and employees that were interviewed, and they're our North Star for our design work. So where to next? So the design profession is still evolving. So only in the last 10 years, the last decade, have we seen design as a way to actually drive business success and also to be used to solve for complex human issues. So we need to make sure we still don't lose our producers and our craftspeople. These are our design specialists that sit in those first two orders. But we need to also have our strategists and our visionaries who work and thrive in complexity, especially in that fourth order. And as technology continues to grow and change, so will design. So, as a fun fact, some people may have spotted this, the majority of the images that I've used in this presentation were actually done through Midjourney. It's an AI image generator. So things like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, the metaverse and automation are going to have huge impacts on design in the future. And so as we're facing into a more complex world, and as it starts to change faster than ever before, designers are well placed to help solve for the big, messy problem spaces that come with this. Thank you.